G'day legends. Reamping. I'm sure many of you have heard of this term before, and you would all have a very similar understanding of what it means. Basically, you take your electric guitar or your bass, you plug it straight into your interface or through a DI box into your interface, you capture that clean signal, you do your performance, you edit it, you get it sounding great, and then you send it back out of your DAW into a reamp box, and then you send that into an amp, you dial in the best tone you've ever heard in your life, you mic it up, and then you hit record. That performance plays out of your DAW, sends into the amp, you capture it in one glorious take, and then you have the awesome tone printed into your session, and you haven't had to sit there for hours on end blasting an amp while you've been tracking your performance. That is the general takeaway for reamping. Most people think of using it for guitars and bass, but reamping is not just for guitars. It can be used for a really creative and fun way of mixing and getting some awesome effects into your productions. Franklin Audio are an Australian-based company just 2 hours south from here in Sydney, and they are making some absolutely killer gear for our studio heads, DI boxes, reampers, and switches, all useful things that every studio owner needs. So I'm just going to quickly run you through the DI-20 and the RA-20. So this is the Franklin DI-20, a stereo passive direct box. Basically great for plugging in any instrument from keyboards, guitars, basses, anything that's got an unbalanced signal that you need to convert to a balanced signal. This is perfect. Our inputs and throughs are 1/4-inch jacks, and our outputs are XLRs. For each channel, we've got a ground lift, we've got a polarity reversal. We also have a pad for signals that are coming in a little hot. Pretty straightforward, but very nice looking DI box. This is the Franklin RA-20, the stereo reamper. We have our left input and our right input. So we have our level, which controls the amount of signal that we're feeding through to the next device. Up the top, we have a variable impedance selector. Both of these channels also have a ground lift and a polarity reversal as well. The inputs are line level. You can use an XLR or a TRS jack to feed your signal in, and then the outputs are 1/4-inch only. These two buttons on the back of the RA-20 configure the output settings. The RA-20 can run in 4 different modes. We've got dual mono, mono to dual mono, stereo, and mono to stereo. If you want to learn a little bit more about those settings and how it all works, I have a link to the RA-20 in the description below. They have a really good diagram on the site showing exactly how this works and explaining each of those modes. So what I'm going to be showing you in this video is how to use the RA-20 and the DI-20 from Franklin Audio to reamp some mono and stereo sounds to get some really fun and inspiring effects back into our production through the use of reamping. So the first thing we need to do is assign the outputs and the inputs of the signal that we're going to be reamping. For example, this snare drum right here, we need to load up Logic's in-out plugin. So you'll find it under Utility, I/O, and we're going to go mono to stereo. You maybe only need to go mono if you're just going to send a mono signal out and receive a mono signal back. But I'm going to show you how we can send a mono signal out and receive a stereo signal back. Once we've got that loaded, we need to select our output, and this is going to send the signal through one of the outputs on the back of our interface. So I'm going to choose output 5, and then I'm going to receive the signal back in on inputs 5 and 6. From output 5, I have that hooked into my patch bay. So right here is output 5. Now I need to take that signal with a balanced TRS cable, and I need to plug that then into our RA-20. And because I'm doing a mono signal, I'm only taking the one output. If I was doing a stereo signal, I would also take a TRS cable out of output 6 and do output 5 and 6, and then I'll plug that into the other side of the RA-20, receiving a stereo signal. But following that mono signal out of the RA-20, we're going to take our left output, and we're going to run that down into our first pedal. This has essentially converted the signal from balanced now to unbalanced. Then our signal is passing through a couple of pedals, the Sick As Overdrive, and then into our Strymon Blue Sky. Now out of the Blue Sky, I'm actually taking the stereo output so I can get that nice stereo reverb sound. So I'm using the Franklin DI-20, and I'm taking the left and the right output of the Strymon and putting them into the left and the right input of the DI-20. Then I am running the left and the right outputs of the DI-20 into a pair of Phoenix Audio preamps. The way I have these preamps set up is that they're all running into the line inputs on our SSL-18. So channels 1 to 8 of our SSL-18 are each of these preamps up here. For our first example, I'm going to take my kick and snare, I'm going to send them to a mono bus where I'm going to send that out into our reamper, but I'm going to be bringing it back in as a stereo signal. For our next example, I'm going to show you how we can take a heavy guitar riff and make it sound even heavier. That guitar sounds absolutely filthy. The Pog is definitely one of my favorite pedals. Getting that drop octave sounds awesome. You can even take that idea and duplicate the guitar track and pitch shift one of them down, lay them together. It's going to sound super heavy. Sounds massive. Okay, for this next example, what if we send some vocals out through our pedals and get a really cool, gritty, distorted vocal sound?
Everything ends up for the better. Plain and simple, maybe we just don't belong together. Maybe it's not how it's supposed to be. Maybe we were living in a fantasy. Maybe we were just caught up in bad decisions. We both know we don't listen. The only time I listen is when half of me wants to believe.
Love that effect. I think that sounds awesome. Now this next example builds upon that idea. We're going to duplicate our lead vocal. We're going to take that duplicate and we're going to reamp it out through the distortion pedal. And then we're going to bring it back in and put some big reverb on it. And it's going to give us this really gritty reverb texture that we can then blend in with our dry vocal. It sounds really cool.
Half of me wants to believe that everything will change. Half of me wants to believe we can just forget everything. We're back and forth a little more of we're on. What's killing me?
I love what that adds to the vocal in the mix. It just makes it sound really big. And for our last example, taking our acoustic guitar bus, there's a bunch of different acoustic guitars in here mixed in stereo. We're going to take that stereo signal, reamp it, run it through the Strymon Blue Sky, and get some really nice, lush reverb sounds going on here. I absolutely love the Blue Sky reverb, and it's really cool to be able to implement it like this in a production. So as you can see, reamping is not just for guitars and bass. There's a lot of cool options that you can do with the RA-20. So guys, if you want to support an awesome boutique audio gear company that are doing great things, you should definitely check out that link in the description below. Franklin Audio aren't some massive mass-produced company. It's all handmade here in Australia. Really quality stuff. As you can see from what I've shown you before, really classy, clean looking boxes, and they sound great too. At the very least, make sure you go and follow them on Instagram and all of their social medias. I'm excited to see what they bring out next, because I think the stuff they're doing is really cool and just really useful stuff to have around the studio. Thanks heaps for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support this channel, make sure you go and pick yourself up some merch. I've got some shirts, tees, a bunch of different stuff over on the merch store, but I also have a bunch of drum sample packs, mixing courses over on my website as well. All of those links are in the description below. And if you want to check out one of those mixing courses, check out this next video coming up.